Hi, Tanzanites. Do y'all see somebody in this window with me? So, this is the second time that I'm doing audio and video tonight because I loved it so much the last time. Um, it's your girl, Tanya, DJ Miss Tan Cummings, and I'm coming to you how I know how to come to you with so much love. It is Thankful Thursday. So Brittany and oh, did I say her name? Let her tell us who she is before I get started. Because you guys know I can start talking and forget about what is supposed to be happening. But I am so excited tonight to have Miss Brittany with me. So what I'm gonna do is just let her toot her horn a little bit, and then we'll get into some of the specifics of why Miss Brittany is on with us tonight, Tanzanites. Welcome, Brittany.
Hi, hello there. Thank you, everyone. Happy to be a Tanzanite and be a part of this amazing episode. So, thank you so much and for taking a chance and listening to me. My name is Brittany Bennett. I am a New York State licensed mental health counselor. I always like to say the state because it's always different depending on where you live. But I am a therapist here. I do teaching about mental health. I also teach other therapists and social workers in New York State different topics about being a therapist. And I also published a self-care book called Selfish is the New Selfless, which is centered on giving yourself permission to explore, making decisions that are best for you in the life that you'd like to work towards.
So, first of all, guys, you know, I always talk about it's okay to live. And if you are new and don't know my story, it is about living after the murder of my son, the murder of my sister, and the unexpected death of my mom. Just living life according to how you want to live it, but living with grief. And I was so happy that Brittany found me. The book, the title of the book, it just blew me away. I have suffered my entire life with taking care of others and just not knowing to take care of myself. So at first, I get this email and they're like, we really want to be on the podcast. I'm like, hmm, let me see what's going on here. And then I saw the title of the book and I was just like, all right, all right, I really want to do this. There was one thing that blew me away that made me just really be like, okay, being selfish is a necessity. Can we start there? That's the part that really drew me in because we're taught our entire lives that being selfish is so wrong. So tell me more about that.
Mhm. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head with everything that you just said. You know, what's interesting is the title is controversial at times. Sometimes when people read that title, there's a lot of resistance or hesitancy to really kind of dissect and explore what the takeaway is from the book. And I love that famous saying of do not judge a book by its cover. And actually, the title of the book, Selfish is the New Selfless, I took selfish and I separated into two parts because we all know that in today's society and world, selfish is focusing on what's in our best interest and not considering other people. It's always had a very negative association with it. And I took a look at breaking it down into two parts, self and ish. And per the dictionary, self means connected to your thoughts, your feelings, and your sensations in the world around you. And ish simply means being a part of that. So I took those two words, put them together. Self-ish is the new selfless. And it means that if we're not connected to who we are and what it is that we need to work towards and achieve to live a life that brings us calm, peace, fulfillment, until we can identify those things, we truly won't represent, we won't be able to be our best for others if we're not taking care of ourselves first. And that really is the takeaway. And just to put a nod to, if anyone's ever been on an airplane, that introductory to you have to put your own mask on first so that you can be of support and assistance to others.
All right. So tell Tanzanites how or why this subject? What did something happen with you? Like what motivated the creation for this art, I call it?
That's a very interesting question, and I can't say that it's anything in particular, except for I do like to acknowledge my time through childhood, adolescence, early adulthood, and now going into mid-adulthood. I've always been very independent, always being in a place of having to make decisions for myself. I spent a lot of alone time as a child and adolescent, not growing up with other siblings or cousins around on a regular basis. So when you spend a lot of
Hmm.
time to yourself, you spend a lot of time thinking and reflecting, and your childhood brain or your teenage brain might not realize that that's what you're doing, that you're thinking a lot and that you're reflecting and exploring. But I'll tell you, as you get older and you look back and you think, aha, so that's why maybe I don't mind being alone. I don't mind making choices that make me feel good, that make my brain feel good, that make my body feel good. And, to each their own, but you really get to kind of identify if you allow yourself to take an inventory of when do I feel at peace? When do I feel calm or balanced? And I really like to use those words because unfortunately, I think whether it's through film, television, books, social media, we think that we have to achieve a state of happiness. And I think that happiness is the wrong word because happiness is fleeting. It's moments of really feel good moments if we're lucky enough to experience that, or if we try to make room for that in our lives. And the day to day is the daily doing, the daily tasks, the daily routines, where we might be on autopilot or we're just doing because we just have to do. So in essence, it's really about how can we in the day-to-day stuff that we experience more often than the bigger stuff, how can we start to do things that we can look forward to or minimally that make us feel good and calm?
All right. So in the book, you guys told me that it is an outdated stigma around prioritizing yourself. Where did that stigma arrive from? Like, who told us that being selfish was wrong?
That's a great question. That's a really good question. I don't know if that would be generationally or again, if that's through what we've seen on maybe advertisements, television, and film, and gosh, how that has really grown to such a great magnitude over time. But what's really interesting is, and I like to acknowledge this, that when COVID came about, which was what, like 5 years ago now, we all were home, we had nothing to do. Next thing you know, everyone's on social media and posting. And I have to say that really, since that time, mental health is talked about and supported in such a positive atmosphere more than it ever has in the history of my being, pre-therapist and post-therapist. So I do like to at least acknowledge that we're in a way where it is more willing and reasonable to be able to talk about mental health, wellness, what self-care is, what it looks like for us. So things have changed a lot, but I really I couldn't say. I could not pinpoint that. I wonder if you or your audience can.
So, and it's funny you mentioned media and television and different things like that because I would think it taught us to be the opposite. It taught us to, like, commercials taught us to want toys, and movies taught us to want love, and to believe and be a hopeless romantic and really just go for your dreams and don't think about nobody else. That's what I would think. Now, for me, I would tell you what taught me to be that selfish was wrong was church, you know,
Mhm.
following Christianity, saying that you must give away and do for others, and give offering and serve God and serve your pastor. So growing up and being in church so many days out the week, you know,
Mhm.
to me, and we also learned, if my grandmother was living, I would be in trouble for having this red lipstick on. That's another story for another day. But we also learned about vanity, to not, it's vain and it's wrong. And, so many things that I grew up thinking that just taking time for myself or saying no or not doing what somebody asked me to do was not Christian like. So it was not right. It was wrong. I was never taught that word of selfless. Like, never ever in all of my life, I never feel like you heard that word, but you didn't know what it meant, and it didn't mean anything to me. But that word selfish was taught to me as a little child. I remember a story. I had some gum. Me and my sister were 13 months apart. Sorry, my grandbaby wants to be in the podcast.
I love it.
um, and my mom told me, she was like, I had a piece of gum, and I didn't want to share it with my sister. So from a little girl, I was always told I was selfish. And I spent my entire life trying to prove I wasn't. I think about the marriage I was in for 18 years with that guy for 24 years. Everything that I decided in my life was to not be selfish. From I gave all my time to my friends. I only it's the weirdest thing. My brand honestly came from the death of my son. I was getting glasses and the I just I just have a connection with angel moms out of nowhere. And the woman that was measuring me and doing my glasses, she was having a bad day. And she began to talk about her son had been murdered as well. And she wanted to throw a party in honor of his life. And everybody was telling her she was wrong. And I touched her on the shoulder and I go, it's okay to live. And we kind of paused and it just grew from there. So, I mean, being selfish has always been a thing in my life that I've struggled with. So, I was so impressed that you guys found me. And my Tanzanites always want to know my business. First, before you address the selfishness, how did you find me again?
Oh yes, myself, we've been searching for any podcast that truly is authentic and discussing relatable everyday experiences, life experiences centered on well-being, living a life of well-being, and that is how we came across you.
All right. So when I read yours and you wanted to fight against that stigma and you had a bold approach to helping people who have been through certain things, what would you tell somebody like me that could be more bold, that was raised in the church, that had all of these things, telling you can't do this, you have to give your time away, your talents away, and everything? What would you advise someone like me and then someone that's not like me?
Hmm. Well, I'm so relieved that you brought up your experience from church growing up and how that has impacted your decision making and the way that you've lived your life. Because when I thought about resistance or reluctance to be open to the book, the resistance that I've gotten are from those who are very much dedicated into their beliefs, their religion, their church. So it's not that it's interesting, but I'm glad that you had said that because it's eye-opening for me. And I've even kind of thought about, do I change the summary of the book? But to each their own. And at the end of the day, it's a choice to open up the book or read the back, right? That's the choice that one can make to really kind of dive into it, or maybe to challenge themselves, say, what does this really mean? Does it mean what I think it does, or doesn't it? But there still is that selfish piece, and there's a difference between being selfish, which is the self-centered, doing things because you want to and you don't care what someone else thinks, which is
Mm.
what is selfish is known for, and that's what you are referring to. I have to say and assume, right?
Mhm.
But I my hope and what I hope to land is that there has to be a little give and take, a little bit of a balance of, if we are going to live a selfless life, a life where we can give back, we can truly only do so if we feel our best. And that is that challenge of finding the balance and exploring what is something that I would benefit from improving that would make me feel better. So just an example of, if someone's feeling a little bit irritable or their mood's starting to change, and let's just use present day. Especially on the East Coast with the seasons changing, we have something very common in New York State, New York State, because I'm in New York, but all these eastern states of the seasonal affective disorder, where the time change happens with the clocks. It's dark early in the morning, it's dark early in the evening, and it can really affect the way that you feel and your mood, and it can cause you to be irritable or down. Um, and just kind of thinking about that, giving ourselves permission to say, what can I work with? What can I do? What is something that is reasonable and realistic, practical that I can incorporate and make a part of my life to make me feel better internally, whether it's in the brain, the body, the spirit? What are things that are practical? And that's kind of what I like to get at is routines. If someone likes to have a cup of coffee in the morning, really choose to have the cup of coffee, not just hitting the button and drinking as you're moving around. Wake up earlier if you can to have 15 minutes to yourself to really just sit there and think and reflect with no noise. Um, if it's a bedtime routine, I really like talking about this one for just a moment. It seems so simple. You're tired, you get ready for bed. But if you can truly put into practice of really taking an inventory of your environment, what's the lighting that you like the most when you go to bed at night? What's the temperature that you prefer? Can you change that temperature a little bit to make it more comfortable for you? What are you wearing to bed in the evening? Yeah, there's nothing worse than when your pant legs rolling up in the middle of the night and it wakes you up out of bed, right? It disrupts your sleep. Or if you wake up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, maybe you have something to drink, not as late in the evening. But consider the noise. Some people like to have noise in the background and others don't. But all of those things add up to the greater good. And if we can start to incorporate small things but have a long lasting, bigger impact, it starts the path to living a life that feels a little more balanced, in control, predictable. Predictability is good because it's expectation and things of that nature. I could go on, but I'm just going to stop talking for a moment.
So let's talk about what you said when you say if you're going to have coffee.
Hmm.
So that's all routine stuff. So, you get up, you eat, you have coffee, right? What do you mean by if you're going to have coffee? Break that one down
Hmm.
for me.
Sure. So if it is up to one to get up, start the coffee, but they're getting dressed, maybe they're making a lunch for later or a breakfast, or if someone has a family that they have to take care of and they're running around and now their coffee's getting cold, or if they don't finish it or they put it in a to-go cup and now they're leaving to go somewhere else. That's all the day-to-day to-do stuff. But if you truly enjoy it, like you love your cup of coffee, some people just drink it for the caffeine and they slug it backwards, right? But if someone truly enjoys coffee or tea or a morning workout or something of that nature, literally, and yeah, I feel you there. Okay. That's why I give multiple examples. Okay, I'm not there yet. But if you can intentionally choose, I really enjoy a cup of coffee and I want it uninterrupted. I want to make it, I want to sit down, I want to hold it, and I just want to be able to sit there and do nothing else,
Mm.
whether it's staring out the window, whether it's my phone is turned over and it's on silent, and I'm not even going to go on my phone, or I'm going to take the other route. Maybe you do want to go on your phone. Maybe you want to scroll for 15 minutes while you're drinking your coffee. Give yourself the permission to do so because either or, there is no wrong. It's dictated by what it is that you enjoy the most and start incorporating,
Mm.
I call them the feel goods. Start incorporating the little feel goods because it's the little feel goods that make up the greater part of how you experience the moments of your day.
Gotcha. So you talked about feel good, those feel good days without guilt. Tell me what's a feel good day? When you're feeling good or when you're not
Sure,
down? Like what is that?
sure. Well, to each their own with that one too, right? That's going to be different for me and the next person. Some people like hustle and bustle and busy. Some people like to have a lot of things to do. Some people don't like a lot of downtime. Some people like to have expectation, a groundhog's day when they go to work. They know exactly what to expect. So what I rather like to kind of challenge and encourage someone to kind of think about is what is it that you prefer? What type of day do you like? What type of day would you want more of or less of? And if you can, again, I'm using this word inventory a lot, but if you can take an inventory of what is it about my day that I don't dread and why, or what is it about my day that I look forward to the most and why, always ask yourself the why. Do not judge yourself or get up in
Mm.
self-criticism of I feel this way or I feel that way or I should feel this way or I should feel that way. It should always be about why do you feel that way with no judgment, because from that, you can then start to say, and now what? Now what can I work to change, even if
Mm.
it's small?
I love that. I absolutely love that. I love that. Oh man, that is such a good thing for me. You know what? The one I'm going to take the most is Groundhog Day. I have been made to feel bad because I'm a creature of habit. It absolutely makes me comfortable. No matter what job I do, if it's tip top corporate or way down at McDonald's, I love having a Groundhog's Day. I like going to work knowing what I'm going to do. And some people don't do it. They want to
Right.
change positions all the time, they want to move to a different department.
Hmm.
I could do the same thing. If I could do it like in the back of my hand, it makes me very, very happy. So I'm going to tell the next person, I'm having a Groundhog's Day. I'm having a Groundhog's life. This is my life. I don't have to change it if I don't want to, if I love it, right?
The best part about that is you answered the why. It's creature of habit. And that brings about expectation. And again, to each their own, you have to define that for yourself. But it takes a little bit of time to think about and explore. And honestly, I almost want to put a nod in there that that could be a really great use for therapy, if anyone's ever considering going to therapy. But I digress for that for now. But yes, always ask yourself why. Why do I feel this way? Why does this person make me feel this way? Why does this person's presence make me feel this way? Whether that's you get irritable around someone, you roll your eyes when you see that you get a text from somebody, or you kind of light up like you almost can't wait to open up the text message. It's equally important, no matter what the feeling is, it's the why. Why do you dread opening up this text message from this person? Why do you look forward to
Hmm.
opening up this text message from this person? And that also, now the wheels are spinning, Tanya, but now it makes me want to talk about who is a support. How do you define a support? How do you know if you have a support? Because a lot of times, sometimes we naturally just think our number one supports are the people that we talk to the most or the people that we live with if we live with other people. And just because we live with someone or they're a partner or they're a parental guardian or a parent or a sibling, it doesn't mean that they need to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. It is a choice
Mhm.
to decide, do they deserve to know the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the why? How do they make us feel? So, yes, thinking about who do you enjoy being around, who brings you calm, who brings you peace, who makes you laugh, who makes you feel comfortable sitting in silence, doing nothing. All those things deserve attention up here to decide what we want to bring in more of and what we want to put
Not.
out. Yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So if you the why, does it always have to be a why? Can you just like it without a why?
Sure. Sure. Well, yes, you could, but it makes you want to challenge it. Why is that? Why is that? Why is that? Right? But no, I mean, sometimes it just feels good, and that might be for the bigger stuff, right? But if you just know that you just want to sit in the sunshine or you want to sit in a dark room because it just makes you feel comfortable, or maybe you've got a headache or whatever, then it doesn't, you don't have to be doing that big dissection of a why, but it's very valuable, has a lot of impact with other areas.
I think sometimes we challenge others because of what we like, we think others should like.
Well
I'm
said.
kind of guilty of that with my daughter. Our personalities are different. I'm a extrovert. I'm an introvert. People don't believe I'm shy, but I'm a shy extrovert, right? She is a shy introvert. Like, she has her certain people, and I'm a people person. People are peoply to her, right? So for sometimes I have to catch myself and don't put what I like on her and vice versa. So the why, I wrote that down, and I'll, have her to really indulge into why she's doing something, just so she can let me know, so I can understand her better and understand why she's doing it that way, because my way is not the highway all the time, right?
Well, that's very respectful insight that you have there.
So let's move on to something that I've had trouble with for years:
Mhm.
healthy boundaries.
Mm.
How to set them. How do we set healthy boundaries without offending others, worrying about offending others, wondering what people think about our boundaries? Like how does one just say, you know what, this is my boundary, this is it. Like, how you say you looked at that text and you're like, I really don't want to talk to her today. Like, she really annoys me. So how do we set that healthy boundary?
Gosh, what a realistic question, right? I think of a few things, and I'm going to say it again, to each their own. It's going to be different and work differently for all of us. And there's absolutely no harm in putting it into practice and feeling it out, trialing something. You can always apologize if you feel like you need to afterwards, but I like to really kind of plant the seed of kind of thinking about how you want to handle it. And the context can, it can be so different, whether it's work related or family related, let's say, right? But let's say in regards to career, work, something, a project that someone's working on, or they have clients or whatever, whatever. And a boundary being with availability. So if you kind of think about it, sometimes and I love the word guilt that you've used. I don't love the word guilt, but I mean it's such a true thing that so many of us experience. Some of us feel guilty and give in, and we answer the text even though we're done working for the day because we feel like we should, or it would be poorly represented if we didn't follow through or something like that. But a boundary to me is communication, and that is, hey, I'm available Monday through Wednesday this week
Hmm.
from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. only. If you reach out to me afterwards, I will respond to you when I get back into the office, or I will respond to you when I can. And then if they still reach out to you, you don't have to respond because you've already dictated, you've already set forth, you've already told them when your availability is. And you can do the same, with family and friends as well. But there's nothing wrong with putting into practice to see how it feels. But if you set it up, you take the control, for lack of a better word, but you set the schedule. It is up to that other person to choose if they're going to respect it. Are they going to respect the boundary?
Now, is all of this in the book like, can we tell us, is this book like a guide or something that helps us through these types of things that you're talking to me about?
I would say it absolutely hits on a few of those different things. I have a short little chapter. All of the chapters, almost all of them, are very short, 2 to 3 pages a piece, because I wanted quick reading, very easy, relatable, to the point, and done with. With me, if I'm reading a book that's not a story, my attention's only going to last so long. It's like if you've ever been on TikTok and you're going through the videos, very quick if you're staying on or if you're scrolling up, right? Kind of the same thing. So wanted to be very short and to the point. But with that being said, communicating with purpose, different ways you can try to put it into practice. Choosing who deserves to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's one of the chapters in the book, giving you guidance to explore what that looks like for you, what that means to you, what the outcome could look like. There's some little journaling exercises in there so that you can write things down if you would like. Um, yeah, it is absolutely in the book.
All right. So something else that I learned when I was researching you, something I never really thought about. I mean, you think about it, but then you don't know it's connected. Now, I'm having a hard time saying this word. I've been practicing it all week. The lethality. Am I saying that?
Lethality.
Lethality? That's
Yes,
like
you are.
that's like statistics for me. I have to really
Sure.
so that spectrum. Talk to us about that because I was blown away when I kind of, looked it up, when my best friend Google was telling me, what it meant. And I was like, you know what? I don't think people talk about that enough.
They don't. Yeah, I'm so glad that you're willing, Tanya, to explore this. It's because it's not explored often in the depths that I would like it to be. And sorry about that. But while you bring that, there's a couple of things I want to kind of talk about. I think when people think of the word lethality, that might not be heard as often, but suicidality, self-harm. The lethality spectrum really highlights that a lethal sense, a suicidal sense. There is a spectrum in the way that it can be experienced. And because it's not talked about often in the public, unfortunately, I think that society views lethality and suicidal thoughts as all being suicidal thoughts of not wanting to be alive anymore, having plans to end their life. But the spectrum of lethality, also suicidality, that can be used interchangeably, is sometimes on that spectrum, it's not always thoughts of wanting to end someone's life. It can also be, I'm tired, I'm done, I'm exhausted, I don't know how I can do this, I don't know how I'm going to do this, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired. I just don't know. I give up, right? There's different thoughts that people have, and through that exploration, you start to discuss it more and try to understand what someone's experiencing because absolutely, lethality, suicidal thoughts can manifest into something that's more monumental of worry about ending someone's life. But it's very important to also talk about the beginning stages of that, of the thoughts of maybe I don't want to be here anymore, but I do not have a plan to end my life at this time. It's all so equally important to explore both because those thoughts can start to snowball and grow. And then you get to that place, possibly, of not wanting to be here. And the thing I really want to just acknowledge because you're willing to put light on the dark
Hmm.
is I have to be honest with you. I watch a lot of television, I watch a lot of movies, I watch a lot of documentaries. That's my self-care for your Tanzanites. Okay. And I'm sleeping in. Okay. That's what I like to do.
Mine
But
too.
my whole life, I've always watched those things. And in the last decade or so, we see a lot of commercials or acknowledgments before a documentary or a film or a television show that there's going to be a reference to suicide. And it will say, if you or someone you know is struggling with suicidal thoughts, please call this number, or there is help available to you. Are you in crisis? But most people don't know what a crisis is
Hmm.
unless they think it's ready to go to the hospital or that they want to end their life or they're thinking about it. If we can talk about the spectrum and start looking at preventative of let's talk about what happens before you get there. Let's take a look at what depression might be or what anxiety might be and how it can influence one another and how thoughts of maybe I just feel like giving up some days, but I wouldn't hurt myself to be able to check in and monitor that and start making changes to work towards to getting ourselves out of that, that's when we have to talk about preventative before the crisis. And that's why I really like to heavily emphasize the purpose of therapy. Unfortunately, because of film, now maybe I take back the word because I will say influenced by television, film, and books, I have very rarely seen therapy represented accurately, reasonably, respectfully. And I'm very disappointed in the way that it is represented. And then you have the society and generational differences of what are you going there for? You don't need that, or that's for someone who, is quote unquote crazy or not doing well, or all these old school terms, right?
Hmm.
Um, but
Yes.
therapy is best utilized before the heavy becomes too much weight to bear. And that means let's go into the office to therapy to talk about if maybe we think we might want to leave our job, but we're really scared or we're really freaked out and we don't really know what to do about it. Or I'm really not liking my job and I think I should start looking for another one, but my partner's not supportive about it, or I don't feel supported by my partner. Or maybe I'm having some issues with a sibling of mine and I just want to talk about it without having the influence of my family who knows all of us. Or maybe I'm thinking that I don't know if I want to get married, or maybe someone doesn't know if they want to get a divorce or not. Those are things to come to therapy for when you're starting to think about those things, when big decisions are coming your way, or you're considering making a decision. That is when therapy is best utilized preventative before you get to the crisis. And I'll just finish with this too, Tanya, and I thank you for your patience. But
No worries.
most times when people come to the therapy office, it's
Hmm.
out of desperation and they're done. They want change now. So if you can start to think about, you know what? I'm thinking about making a decision.
Hmm.
Carve that time out for you, 45 minutes to an hour, to talk with somebody who is not going to, that's not a family or a friend. A therapist is the perfect party for that experience.
All right. We're going to take a commercial break. And guess what this commercial is, Brittany?
I'd love
Don't
to
you
hear.
don't you dare apologize to me again. You are here on my podcast to give us some good information, and that's some good nuggets. Don't apologize. This is so good. So this is going to lead me to ask, how do we know if someone's just like just tired. I mean, I'm just tired. I haven't been getting sleep lately. I don't know, the circadian rhythm is off, or look at me trying to use big words, can't even say what I want to say. But I'm just lately I haven't been able to sleep. I mean, especially with women my age, we got menopause, we got empty nest syndrome, we got all these types of loneliness epidemics. How do we know if someone is just tired, or they really are having a crisis where they need to, or pre-crisis where they need to talk to someone? I am a person that I have talk therapy, cognitive therapy, like, and it's not because of what I've experienced with the loss of my child. Prior to, I just always believed in it because, I mean, I had siblings. I wasn't left alone, but I wasn't in a family that talked. You just didn't talk about it. You swept it under the rug. You dealt with it. You felt guilty about it. You took it to Jesus, okay?
Mhm.
You just did not talk. So now, and I was a talker. I always got in trouble for talking. So I always want to talk. So therapy for me is a godsend. I'm going to go. I'm going to spend my last dime to go, even if it's just for talk therapy. I don't subscribe to psychiatrists, but that's another story for a different day. Okay. I like to talk mine out. I don't like medicine. Hey, but how do we know? My questions are so long. If the person is just tired, I've had so many people. I talk to so many people. That's why I got certified, because I'm like, y'all got to start paying me,
Mhm.
that have said, I'm going to drive off the bridge.
Mhm.
And I am all in an uproar trying to get to them. And by the time I get there, they're laughing and talking. I don't know how to determine if I need to get an intervention for them or just listen.
Sure. Excellent question. So, couple thoughts. Well, I have many thoughts, but let me just kind of put it down to the latter part of your question. You know, one thing I want to say is research shows being as direct as possible is the most valuable communication. I care about what you're experiencing. I hear what you're saying. I want to be able to be a support to you. Is there anything that you would find to be, is there anything I could do that could assist or support or help you? But getting off track, so my apology. But the biggest thing, the value of asking the direct question is, um, and I want to know, I want to ask you, I want to be able to know, are you experiencing thoughts of not wanting to be alive? And, and then, or however, what feels natural or what feels, the way that you want to do it, or you can ask all of them, but also, have you thought about ending your life, or do you have any intention on ending your life, or whatever words that you want to use? But direct and asking gives that person the permission to be able to choose if they're going to tell you. Beating around the bush or not being direct doesn't really give that permission, which might be not the best word, but might not make someone feel comfortable to be able to tell you if the person asking isn't comfortable to ask the question directly. So if you are direct, they can choose if they're going to tell you. And I truly cannot emphasize, and I get sometimes a little reluctant of saying it this way, for controversial, reaction, but really, people choose if they're going to tell us the truth or not. So even if we ask direct, it is up to them to choose to tell us if they have a plan to end their life or if they're thinking about it. So I think it's very important to acknowledge, especially for anyone who may have lost someone by suicide, or if they have questions about did they do enough or did they miss something, or feelings of guilt or the could have, the would have, and the should have, a very natural experience, reaction, and response. It is up to the other person to choose to tell us. And if we don't know, then we do not know for certain. And I think that that's so important to get across.
Hmm. So ask directly. Okay. Is there any other way we can help them? So if they say yes, then
Hmm.
what? What do we do?
Great question. Great question. So great, awesome, awesome thought. And I again can't even thank you enough for willing to go there, right? But and I'm just going to speak naturally. I've been in the field for over 15 years working, so I've seen lots of different reactions and family support and friend support and acquaintance support and stranger support, right? So I think the first thing is just to breathe for a moment and to not feel that you're in a panic necessarily if the person is in a conversation with you. They're in a conversation with you, they're present with you. If on the other hand, it is what would be maybe referred to as imminent, which means like right now in the moment, if someone cannot guarantee their safety and they're having active thought or intent or attempt, then that is when, you would call, 911, help support a crisis line. But let's get back to the conversation because typically the conversation is where it starts and it's not in an active moment. So in the discussion, it can feel a little panicky if someone might say yes if you're not accustomed to that type of conversation and safety planning, if you will. But really, it is a conversation of have you talked to anyone about this before? Have you do you have support in your life? Do you have a therapist or a family member or a friend that knows what you're experiencing? Have you thought about speaking to someone? Do you feel that you would benefit from speaking with someone right now? Can I help research with you? Can I help make a phone call with you on the line with me? I can even do the talking for you. Do you want to sit
Mhm.
down and take a look at some available options? If someone doesn't have an active experience or thought of ending their life actively and they're in a state on the lethality spectrum, again we use that word of thoughts of sometimes not knowing if they want to be alive or sometimes they have thoughts of thinking that they're going to end their life. This is that time of that conversation of my support to you can look like this. I would be willing to look things up for you on the internet. I would be willing to sit with you and make those phone calls. I will be willing to fill out that paperwork for you. I will be willing to be there with you if you want to share this with a family member. I think that that's a great place to start. And I think it's also worthy to acknowledge again, like who's that support in your life, that sometimes it is not always a family member or a close friend that might be the best choice. Sometimes it can be a peer support out in the community. I heard you talk in a podcast recently giving the suggestion of looking on like a government website for peer support groups and other resources that might be available, especially if somebody doesn't have health insurance. So sometimes even a stranger can be our biggest support, believe it or not, or a peer or someone in the community. So I'll stop there and let me hear your thoughts.
So, I think people are afraid to ask that because you don't want to be responsible once you hear the yes, right?
Mm.
You
Hmm.
you would be happy if you saved that person's life, but then if you couldn't get to them or know what to say. So I think it's so important what you're doing to give people that power, that courage, that knowledge to say, hey, this is what you do. I mean, one thing you said was really good, and I've given people the hotline number before, but I've never thought to say, let's call together
Hmm.
and I'll talk for you, you know,
Hmm.
because some people, just like they don't like therapy, they definitely wouldn't like the suicide hotline because it makes you feel like you're crazy. And that stigma around mental health and mental illness and being crazy makes people not want to seek help. So that was so good. It almost brought me to tears. That
Hmm.
was so, so, so really good that, you know, I really, really, really like that part. Um, you said something else about being direct, right? Can directness turn people off and make them get off the phone? I think some people come to some people because they're easy to trauma dump on. So if you start going, well, being direct and asking them questions, that may run them off. So is there a way to be direct politely, or is it the tone? Is it a technique to being direct?
That's a great question. And absolutely, case by case, for a lack of a better phrase, it's going to be the way that you feel in your own comfort level. And I don't just mean, you, Tanya, or me, but just in general, it's going to be based off the comfort level of you. And are you willing to go there? And what is your tone that you deliver? I think if there can just be some intent behind it, how you hope your words to land, it's totally acceptable and okay of. I want to be able to be here for you. I want to be able to support you. And kind of like what I had said earlier about this is what I could do as a support. Does that sound okay to you? Does that sound helpful to you? Is there anything that would be helpful or not helpful at all that I should be aware of? But again, back to that directness, tone, delivery, at the end of the day, if you're coming up from a place of you care, that's what you have to remind yourself. So don't get too caught up in how it lands or what the tone is, because again, at the end of the day, the person that you're asking makes the choice if they're willing to go there.
So let's say, there's someone that, I mean, they don't know how to be direct, they don't know what to do. What is the alternative if you don't have the courage? You just happen to be talking to your friend one day and they said, I've had enough, and you panic. What else can a person do to get that person some help if they're not able to talk them off the ledge? Do you have any suggestions for that?
Mm. If I'm hearing you correctly, it is, if I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like it might be that someone does not want to be here or someone is having thoughts of wanting to end their life. Is that where you're going more direct with that? Like if someone, go ahead.
So like if it's like me, I can do it. I can talk to them, I can be direct, I can
Hmm.
call on through, I can do all of those things. But what if there's someone that experiences this and they panic?
Hmm.
Like they hear someone say, "Oh God, I don't want to be here anymore." And they don't know how to be direct with them to talk them through
Sure,
it to get them help.
sure. And as you said earlier, feeling the responsibility, that's
Hmm.
a really big deal. And it's not if it yeah, as a therapist, it's different. But if you are a friend or a peer or an acquaintance or a coworker or a family member, the responsibility is different, right? You have choices to make, or you can choose if you're going to engage in a conversation around that. But if you don't feel comfortable being direct, um, you can simply, if consult with somebody else. You can consult with a therapist on how to practice doing it. You can ask a family member or a friend. You can ask for support yourself to ask somebody or have a conversation with somebody if you're concerned about them. Or you can share that you're concerned or that you're worried. And I really think that again, because we don't have a specific example to reference, but I think if we care about that person, we know this person. If we come from that place of, I care about you, I'm worried about what you said. I want you to feel that you have options. I want you to feel that there is support out there. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about talking to someone? Have you thought about going to therapy? Does anyone know that you're experiencing this? Just common ground questions of they're conversational. Does anyone know? Thank you for telling me. I would not have known that.
That's
I'm
good.
so relieved that you felt comfortable to tell me that. I might not be sure how to be the best support, but I'm absolutely willing to talk more about it with you. If you want, I can take a look and see, some places that could and would be willing to see with you if that sounds like that's something that you would be willing to do. Is there anything that makes you not want to get help or want to get support or to see a therapist? It's all those deeper questions, but it gets the conversation going and you get to learn a little bit about that person. What's working for them? What isn't? Do they have any worries or fears? I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how many times over the course of 15 years I've heard clients admit that they once in the past didn't tell a therapist that they were having thoughts of not wanting to be alive because they were afraid that there would be a phone call made and they would be transported to the hospital. And that's why it's so important to look at that lethality spectrum, because it doesn't mean, unless somebody truly does, but it holds people back from feeling that they can be truthful for fear of what that consequence might look like. And to them, it might be a consequence versus help, because maybe it starts with talking in therapy about what's going on before it starts to snowball into something bigger, where maybe an inpatient care would be the most appropriate option or the most preferred option down the road.
That's so good. That's going to be a great part for my daughter. She always tells me I tell her business, but a lot of her friends come to her, and she's in that age group of 24. So you have a lot of kids that are suffering from, watching. I call it the spirit of comparison, watching social media and wishing their lives were different and thinking that their lives are so awful. And she has a lot of people that come to her, and she never knows how to advise them, being that, she'll say, well, I'm not a therapist or anything like that, but that's her friends. And, that's what you do when you're young and you're older. You talk to your friends, and she never knows what to do with this information. If someone, comes to her that is suffering, and she doesn't know how to articulate to help them through that crisis, and she doesn't want to push them away by saying you need to go to therapy. So I think those nuggets that you just gave would help her and a lot of other people on how to talk through it themselves, because they may not be able to articulate how they want to give that person help. So that was absolutely wonderful. There was another part that I wanted to touch on. It was emotional bandwidth is real. Why burnout, rage, numbness needs more airtime. Let's talk about that. Um,
Mm,
I get burned out a lot, but I love what I do. So that's, mine that I really want to talk about. But then I know people who are just numb. They're just full of rage. And so I'm really interested in that part.
okay, excellent. One little closure I just want to do to the last segment that we were
Mhm.
talking about, because I wasn't, and I don't even know how old your daughter is, but it made me
24.
think like, oh, I didn't think about minors, right? So I was
Mhm.
just want to just throw it out there
Mhm.
just because. But if in a situation, where someone might be not technically an adult or something like that, you can always, and even if you are an adult, you can always seek support. You can always call a crisis hotline yourself, even if it's not for your own quote unquote crisis, just to get guidance over the phone, or even that text line that you referenced the
Ooh.
other day on an episode, the 988. You can seek support on how to be a support.
Oh,
You
that's
know what I mean? So,
good.
so yeah, just kind of, I just wanted to just put a nod to that. And especially if someone's in school or if there's other students coming up to them, only because I'm now thinking about children, you can always take that professional support from the school administrative staff and counseling staff too.
Well,
Hmm.
that was divine because my foundation helps kids, siblings who lost siblings. So that's a
Wow.
that's a very good,
Okay.
yeah, people always forget about younger kids who may not have families that believe in therapy or know about therapy.
That's
And
right.
so
Hmm.
that's what I have the groups for them, give them some, space to talk in and, air out
Great.
their feelings. So I
Hmm.
never thought about, I only thought about calling those lines if I was in crisis, but not how to help somebody.
Sure.
Not clear. That's good. I love it.
Back to your emotional bandwidth and let's
Yeah.
talk about rage. Because I have a couple light bulbs going off of what I would like, what I think of or what comes to mind, but I want to know and hear, is there anything in particular that comes to mind that you would hope that we would touch on?
So for burnout, I would think like kind of like what we do, right? I know you love what you do and I love what I do. So mine is um I'm not a therapist. I'm just certified as a life skills coach, but it's focusing on grief. It
Yes, I saw that. It's
focuses
beautiful.
it focuses on pre-relationship. So before you get in a relationship, you need to be in a relationship right now, and relationships, and also kids for siblings who've lost siblings, angel moms, and all of that. So
Hmm.
I can get burned out in a way where not because I don't love it and don't want to do it. My burnout comes from people just wanting to vent and not doing the work.
Hmm.
They just want to use me kind of as a dumping ground. And so I can get burned out, and it's on an individual basis. Yeah, so that's where my burnout comes from. That I also am a DJ. I'm getting older. I can get burnout from having gigs back to back to back. So I don't know what kind of burnout yours is about. Rage, I feel like I never experienced rage. People, I don't know why. Maybe it's internal, but I do get numb
Mm,
where I'm just I didn't realize it, but I do get numb where I can check out, and it's a protection mechanism because the pain is so great of missing my son that I just don't want to deal with it. And I'll do things to numb it. I'll eat, I'll, talk, or like I watch I'll stream episodes just not to think. I think that's a form of numbness. So I have those different aspects of it. And when you said it needs more airtime, I was wondering if you mean you need to people need to talk about this more. Is that what needing more airtime meant?
sure. Yes. I mean, I think I when I think burnout's talked about quite a bit. I see it a lot on social media, especially like LinkedIn, which is career oriented, it seems like. But when I think about the rage piece and airtime with rage, it's interesting, and I almost think, do I say this? Do I bring this up? But when I think about rage and airtime, there is a difference between being irritable throughout the year, whether it's through the weeks of the months of the year or if it's an ongoing thing. There is a difference between being irritable or reacting in a way that's frustrated or angry or yelling or shut down and don't talk or stay to yourself. And everyone is different. But when it starts interfering with relationships, other people notice it, or now it's impacting the mood of the other person, or now it's creating butting of heads or arguments or silent treatments or anything like that. That's not really talked about so much. But also, so I mean, I could be willing to go there, but then the other thing, like really what I think about, what I think there would be so much benefit is um and you decide if it's something you want to talk about, okay?
Okay.
But kind of like the acknowledgement that I made earlier, that anytime you watch a television show or film and it gives the warning that if you're feeling suicidal or self-harm to call this number, or here's these resources available, there's a lot of crime television, a lot of true crime television, a lot of film about crime. And I have never once ever, and I watch a lot of television, I have never seen a resource of if you're thinking about ending the life of another person, or if you're thinking that you're going to hurt somebody, please call these resources, connect with these resources. And I think that that's extremely problematic, um, because especially with the news and media, it's infiltrated with all that's going wrong and all the negativity. And we always see the result of rage, but we never see or hear if you're feeling this rage or if you're thinking about intentionally choosing to hurt somebody, call this number.
Now,
There's numbers if someone's in a domestic violence relationship, but
mhm,
it's not for the perpetrator.
all right. So let's stay here for a second because when we talked about the lethality, is am I saying that right? Spectrum.
Yes, you are.
I thought that was included in that. But we what we
Well,
what we talked about only suicide. Is that not
hmm
included with that one?
Well, that's an excellent question. When I think about mental health and mental wellness, lethality is focused on the self, suicidality.
Oh, okay. So killing someone else, that's just lethal mental. What is that one called?
Well, that's an excellent question. And in the world of mental health illness, mental health discussion, there is really not a lot of terms associated with homicide and crime. And that's even my hesitancy to talk about that and say that out loud is because there is not a lot of discussion around resources available for those who have thoughts of harm to others.
And there should be. And you know why I say that? Because my son was murdered. and he was 22, right? He was murdered by another young man who was 22. So who's to say if that young man, if there was, if it was talked about more? I mean, we could, in a perfect world, or have a magic wand and say, well, maybe my kid could be alive if someone would have helped this little boy. Because when you look back throughout his life, he's always had some type of something, him and the other young man that was involved. And nobody helped them. People always say I'm crazy because I say, their mothers lost someone too. They're alive, they're in prison. My son is deceased. But if that was in fact talked about more, how, not even in that spectrum, think about the people that lose their job and they come back and shoot up the whole office. You know what I'm saying? People and or people like snipers, or people that went into the church and killed up a bunch of people. What if there was something that, like they have suicide prevention, and like you said, if someone, they even say that for like SA, if somebody has been a victim of that, they have hotlines for that. So I
Hmm.
really think it needs to have more airtime. I think that's absolutely amazing that when like you said, it's not even anything that focuses on it that much.
That's this conversation that I'm so thankful that you're willing to be a part of, Tanya, is just simply planting the seed of the start of the discussion of where are the resources. And again, like when I say that for the past several years, if there is any suicidality represented in film or television, or even sometimes in books, there is a disclaimer or a resource available, but it is not something that coincides with homicide, crime, harm to others. So so I just appreciate you willing to go there and acknowledge that. And that's my hope by bringing up airtime to rage, is that it's just something that isn't present. It's not present. So thank you.
I need a second. That is something, you know. That is something. I don't know why. I don't. Brittany, that is something. So it's not something I've researched that I, even thought about. Um, until I can say before I met you, just start looking up. Um, I'm at a loss for words. Really, I'm trying not to cry. I'm a crybaby, because I think about that often, and you're absolutely right. People just automatically assume that they're violent. Or, there was a kid here in Jacksonville that just stabbed his father to death. He was 17 years old, you know. And if it was talked about more, people have their opinions. Well, maybe, the dad was abusing him, or maybe the child's just evil, or, whatever. It is something that definitely should be explored. He was only 17, you know. Are we born violent? No. you know Something happens. Even in the case with my son, it was his friend, it was somebody he knew. You know what I'm saying? So what was going on in his mind that day, that, you know what I'm saying, that he plotted that? That's something totally off. Because why are people so angry and so hurt that they would not value someone else's life, and take their life? I mean, my goodness, to know it's not talked about at all. So that emotional bandwidth, you would think it is probably broken. Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
Talk, talk to me, Brittany.
Yeah, I think just, in closing and in summary of that conversation that we've just had, and I'm so grateful for you that you've chosen to share what you have, the little bit that you have, Tanya, is that regardless of a person having thoughts of of wanting to harm another person, they don't even know if there's a resource available to talk about it. Hey, if you're thinking about this, let's talk about it. If you're thinking about harming someone, let's take a look at that. Let's understand that. Let's see what's going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
Starting there. So,
Yeah, I could talk to you all day, every day, Brittany. This has been
likewise.
so wonderful. Tanzanites, I took some notes and just to recap what Miss Brittany has talked about today. First of all, Brittany, tell us where we can get your book.
Well, thank you for that. So, a couple things. Selfish is the new Selfless. It is on Amazon. It is in paperback, ebook, audio. It's an ebook in three languages, English, Spanish, and Chinese. And yeah, it's on Amazon. But if anyone wants a copy, I have the ebook to hand out just through email. If you want to find me on social media or Instagram and you are an ebook reader, I can totally send that so quickly through email. So I always like to offer that. The ebook is so easy for me to do. But yeah, so it's on Amazon. I thank you for even giving me the opportunity to talk about it.
Tell
Thank
me your
you.
socials, Brittany.
So I am on Instagram. It is Brit Hannahb, BrittHannahb. And that's where I, share a lot of my book stuff and really so grateful to have the opportunity to get a podcast because my vision for 2026 is taking these incredible opportunities that you yourself have given me and starting to put out what we talk about comfortably because it took me a long time to get there. But I do my best work in dialogue. I can choose what I want to talk about, but I do my best work when I get to talk with someone who's willing to go there. So I'm just so grateful for you and that I have this opportunity now to take what we've spoken about and start to dabble into seeing how the world reacts and responds and what they want more of and what they want less of, right?
Right. Brittany, so you're talking to me on Zoom. Brittany's in New York, y'all. I'm in Florida. Um, if someone, do you do only in-person therapy? Are you online? Like, can they
Oh,
like
good
say for instance
questions.
somebody hear you and they're like, you know what, I really need to talk to Miss Brittany because she is good and I want to go to her as
Oh.
a therapist. Can they choose you?
So interestingly enough, two things. One, New York State therapists can provide therapy only to usually New York State residents, but I actually am not taking on new clients. I've actually moved into consultant work to be a consultant for other clinicians who want to start their own private practice, how to choose their specialty, how to be able to get certain life experiences in their office. Because again, for me, it's all about getting people in our offices who are thinking about change or making decisions. So who it is that you want to get into to your office. And I should have said this earlier, but when it comes to choosing a therapist, to really take a look at what is their specialty, not do they work with depression or post-traumatic stress disorder or anxiety. Take a look at the life experiences that they're working with, thinking about getting a divorce, thinking about changing a job, having family conflict, because honestly, depression is one of the leading causes of disability worldwide. So if you don't have depression, it is likely that you will have little traits of it on occasion, maybe throughout the calendar year every now and then. It doesn't mean that you have it, but the point is, it is the leading cause of disability worldwide. And with the seasons changing, it can creep up on us. So just kind of being mindful, aware, cognizant of that. But anyways, when choosing a therapist, look for what it is that you want to talk about, and then try to find a therapist who kind of matches that vibe that you're going for in the life experience world. But so I am a consultant for other clinicians. I do teaching. That's why I haven't been seeing clients the past couple of years. And then last but not least, I do have a consultation service through an app. It's a free app. It's called Minette, but it's a consulting service where fee for service, I can answer any questions you have for guidance on how to take the next step to get a therapist, or if you have questions on how to support a loved one who might have a mental health experience.
Film in that for me. What is that?
It's M as in mother,
Hmm.
I as in igloo, N N. is in Nancy Nancy, ECT, Minette.
All right.
Yep, it is. It's amazing actually. It's a free app to download, but you pay for a consultation for someone. But it's incredible because you can actually select the area that you have a question about, and then the experts come up. You can do text message, you can do video. Of course, everyone sets their own rates, but the point is if you're looking for a quick response for something that you want an answer in any category, it doesn't, I mean, it could be anything, marketing, mental health, nutrition, medical conditions. They're all on there. So that's where I'm housed as well.
So, Brittany, you only do consultations if you're a licensed, what if somebody's just an LSC, a licensed skill a coach, a life skills coach? Could you help them get their own practice? Could you consult with them? I mean, if I knew someone that
Sure.
was trying to
I
get their
think
own practice.
I think absolutely as far as like if someone's trying to think like, what type of clientele do I want to come into my office? I have a lot of fun with kind of diving into exploring that. Like just coming up with who do you want to work with? Why do you want to work with them? How do you know that that's who you want to work with? Because by
Mm.
starting to challenge and pull it back, you actually end up really defining your ideal person that you want to come to you. So, absolutely, it's a great question.
Well, you'll be hearing from me, young lady. Well, Brittany, I want to thank you. I mean, my Tanzanites may have thought initially this was something different, but Miss Brittany is, in fact, a very good representation of it's okay to live because that's what she's trying to help you do. She's trying to help you help others do that as well with her book. So make sure you get her book. Make sure you contact her on her socials, as she has said. And you could have been anywhere tonight, Miss Brittany, but you decided to be with me. I just want to thank you
Likewise,
so much for the work that you're doing. I thank you for being the person that you are, but more importantly, I thank you for joining me tonight.
I couldn't be more thankful for you, Tanya, for spending your night with me and choosing to take a chance on me. So, ditto. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you real soon. I'm gonna
Thank you.